We're here at my studio, Good Danny's in Lockhart, Texas. We moved the studio down here from Austin, where we were located for about 10 years, and set up shop in this quiet little community. So my studio is sort of, it's definitely a musician's studio in that we're like very hands-on with building albums with the artists we're working with. Every piece of gear in here is mic'd up all the time. The piano's mic'd, there's always a kit up and running, the vibraphone's mic'd. The Leslie's ready to reamp backup vocals or strings through. It's a very functional space that, in general, I kind of want the engineering to be invisible here so we can focus on writing parts and hopefully building a really creative album together. I think like me being a musician and appreciating what it is to have time in the studio and that being related to it being a more creative space rather than just a place where you record sounds. I think that is kind of essential to my whole thing. I've always been into music. My dad gave me a tape when I was in maybe like kindergarten. I was like 5 years old. Had the Beach Boys on one side and Michael Jackson on the other, and that kind of forged the path for me. Growing up, me and all my friends played guitar. You can't have a band with 5 guitars. Somebody had to play drums. I was just a little bit better at it than the rest of my friends. Kind of switched focus in my teenage years into drumming, which is what I do professionally outside of recording. I started interning at a studio called ASC Summit Burnett in Dallas. It was old school, big studio, echo chambers, tape machines. So I kind of learned the old school way from some old school guys. Which is a huge part of my aesthetic here. Working on tape, using tube microphones, it's kind of like I have a very classic aesthetic, and that comes from just the guys I happen to learn from. Yeah, some of my favorite projects, I really love this record called D by White Denim. The last Shearwater record, that's got to be one of my top, just because it's so personal. I played in that band for many years. Also, I mixed, that White Denim record, D, was mixed on S3As. Everything that I mixed at that place was on that 8038 were S3As. No bullshit, those are the first really high-end speakers that I ever heard, the S3As. And I will never forget the sound of hearing speakers like that. That's a major changer for me. And then that ended up being what I mixed a lot of those records on, So I've been tracking and mixing on the S3Vs for a few months now. In general, I would say they are a very rock and roll speaker. They're super powerful. The mid-range is really forward, which is great for mixing guitars, and the top end does not hurt your ears, which is really good for long days of tracking. You got monitors cranked up. A lot of guitarists want to track with monitors full blast. They don't want to be in headphones. I get that. It means I'm sitting here right in the splash zone all day. And with the S3Vs, I can do that. My ears aren't ringing at the end of the day. There's a softness because of the ribbon tweeter. There's just a softness up top that, I can get through a 10-hour day tracking and feel pretty good at the end of it. The imaging is the other thing. I'm just fucking blown away with the imaging on this. The imaging on the S3Vs has completely changed. It changes the way I pan. I can hear something just go right across the stereo image. There's no jump into the middle, or what I've always struggled with this is great center spot, great left, great left and right. Everything in between is kind of this gray area. Is that 40% out? Is it 65% out? I don't know. It's kind of out there somewhere in the middle. With these guys, I can listen to something just like minutely. I'm in Pro Tools, I go from 25 to 30, and I just hear it's like right there. And I haven't had that on any of the other studio monitors I've worked on. Not just the left and right, but the Z-axis, hearing the way things decay into the background, hearing the nuance of pre-delay that's at 25 milliseconds versus 40 milliseconds and how that sets something right behind it. It's essential, especially because we're using a bunch of noisy old springs, generally speaking here. The biggest change in workflow for me, having the S3Vs, I spend a lot less time checking stuff in the car. And that is a huge time saver. Going out back and forth, trying to dial in the low end, see where the vocal sits. When it sounds right in here, I just know it's right. And that's a huge time saver for me. Part of that is the the low end extension is massive on these. The bass goes way down, and I don't need to go check in a car with an overjuiced sub to hear if the low end's right, because these things are kicking it out. So another huge advantage with the S3Vs is the onboard DSP. So there's high shelf, low shelf, 6 bands of EQ. My user preset, for example, is different than Max, my studio partner's preset. He can come in here and change it to user 2. He's got it where he wants it. If I want more top end, mine's got a little extra boost at 8K. It sounds right to me, sounds right for him. We don't have to move monitors. It means everyone can work in here and be happy with the same set of speakers. The dispersion is really tailored because of the way the ribbon tweeter is designed. So it's not just me sitting right here that's in the sweet spot. It means everyone that's on the couch listening to mixes can give me a thumbs up and say, yeah, it sounds great back here too. If your monitoring's not good, then your mixes aren't good. Or maybe you lucked out and you got some good mixes out of some crazy sounding speakers, but good luck convincing your clients that your mix is good when it sounds bad in the room. You know?